Arirang Special.
The denuclearization of the Korean peninsula of North Korea. The denuke.
The Korean peninsula has long been a regional powder keg in Northeast Asia.
This regime cannot threaten the world. It will be taken care of.
The upcoming North Korea-US summit is being seen as an event of historic significance, a first-ever meeting between these long-term adversaries. Now, hopes of peace, not war, are gaining ground. Could a wind of change now blow across the border, dividing the two Koreas from one another? Hello and welcome to Dorosan Station here in South Korea. Now, if you look around, you can see this is not a particularly busy station. It's hardly a bustling terminus. And there's a reason for that. Dorosan is as far as you can go in South Korea before you have to stop. This represents a road, or rather a rail link, to nowhere. Behind Dorosan is the DMZ, the demilitarized zone which separates the two Koreas. Beyond the DMZ, of course, is North Korea, a land which is forbidden for South Koreans to enter. But change is in the air, and now there are hopes that perhaps this road to nowhere could become a road to somewhere. On April 27th, 2018, the third ever Inter-Korean Summit took place. A summit enabled by the so-called Peace Olympics, which had taken place in South Korea's Pyeongchang just weeks prior. About 3,000 journalists flew in from around the world to South Korea to cover this crucial moment. What breakthroughs might be achieved? Journalists eagerly waited to report what might be the first. A car carrying North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who departed from Pyongyang, arrives at the truce village of Panmunjom inside the DMZ. Panmunjom is where the Korean War Armistice Agreement was signed 65 years ago. For the first time in history, two Korean leaders met in this place, symbolic of the division of the peninsula. South Korean President Moon Jae-in is led by the hand by Kim, who invites him over to the north. It was an unscripted but powerful moment. Could it mark a new beginning? Journalists witnessed this new chapter opening, gripped by the drama unfolding before their eyes.
Set out to impress this morning. President Moon heading.
Imjingak is just a stone's throw from the inter-Korean border. To share the high emotions of this historic moment, South Koreans gathered here, tuning in together on these first steps to peace.
지금 남북이 이제 헤어진 지가 굉장히 오래됐잖아요. 근데 이제 그걸 이제 끝내고 정말 남북이 좀 하나 되고 통일하자, 언제까지 통일하자 이런 결정이 좀 났으면 좋겠어요.
지금 분단이 된 지 좀 많이 됐잖아요. 70년 넘었잖아요. 그렇게 됐고 지금 우리나라도 많이 힘드는 상황이고 북한도 그런 상황인데 같이 통일되면 북한에는 자원도 많고 우리나라에는 인력도 많고 브레인도 많으니까 이렇게 합치면 정말 나라가 더 잘 되지 않을까 그런 생각이 있네요.
Foreign journalists were also reporting live from Imjingak, just 7 kilometers from the military demarcation line, and offering their own analysis.
Insbesondere Panmunjom, wo die Verhandlungen stattgehen, als Moon Jae-in und Kim Jong-un da Hand in Hand. What I sense in Germany or in the European press is the feeling of, well, now they're talking, now they're moving towards peace. So I feel like the perception over there is like 2 or 3 steps ahead of the real events. Because what many people seem to forget in Europe is how far North and South have already been like in the early 2000s during the Sunshine Policy, and how it all fell apart. So it's a rocky way. It's a good start today, and it's an exciting start, but it's such a difficult and rocky way to go, and there have been really substantial concessions on part of North Korea to make that really happen.
The leaders of the two Koreas talked, turning hopes for peace, prosperity and unification into what may become a reality. At the conclusion of their summit, the two leaders signed the Panmunjom Declaration, committing both parties to a range of steps.
한반도에 더 이상 전쟁은 없을 것이며 새로운 평화의 시대가 열리고 있음을 함께 선언하였습니다.
우리 두 사람이 무릎을 마주하고 긴밀히 소통하고 협력함으로써 반드시 좋은 결실이 맺어지도록 노력해 나갈 것입니다.
The summit was a remarkable turnaround, given that just months earlier, many of us had wondered if Korea was on the brink of war.
Yeah, a big story today. Front pages, top of the bulletin. How do you feel writing the first draft of history?
When you think of the situation just 4, 5, 6 months ago, it's kind of astonishing to see that this is where we are. So
you've seen the field of factor that's been generated here between the South and North Koreans. Is this a roadmap to peace?
It's better than, I think, where we were. I think it is a step. I mean, it's a foundation. It's certainly, I think, nothing is guaranteed at this point. But yeah, I think it's a positive step forward. I think it's hard to deny that.
Where will the Panmunjom Declaration lead? For this summit has a new international dimension.
How do you think the good vibes, the good optics, the positive outcome from this might translate across or perhaps impact that next summit?
Two things to say about that. The summit declaration contained language on denuclearization, but nothing concrete. That issue now is in the hands of the United States and North Korea. If Trump and Kim work hard and do well, progress can be made. Also, the South Korean side has not given any economic incentives really to North Korea in today's summit. They've left that for later because they know that the international sanctions regime is linked to this inter-Korean issue.
After the summit, President Moon communicated to US President Donald Trump Chairman Kim's apparent willingness to denuclearize.
This is the project that Moon Jae-in has, this idea of engagement to socially engage North Korea, including the leadership, and that through this dynamic interaction that this would have a transformative effect on the thinking, the attitudes, the beliefs, the values of North Korean people. It's what President Moon is trying to do. Now, whether or not that's successful or not, we don't know. We can only try. But then we have to evaluate and assess that based on the behavior and actions that North Korea takes.
북한의 김정은 위원장이 신년사를 통해서 평창 동계올림픽에 참가하겠다라고 이제 공언을 했고, 자신의 여동생 이제 김여정 당 중앙위원회 제1부부장을 특사로 한국에 보내서 문재인 대통령을 초청했을 때만 하더라도 북한은 CVID까지 받아들일 준비는 되어 있지 않았을 거라고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 신년사를 봤을 때 핵단추가 김정은 위원장의 책상 위에 놓여 있다라고 얘기를 하면서 미국에 대해서는 대결적인 입장을 보였습니다. 그런데 문 대통령이 남북한 간만의 관계 개선은 안 된다. 북한과 미국과의 관계 개선이 필요하다고 하면서 북미 정상회담을 주선해 줌으로써 김정은 위원장의 생각도 바뀌었다고 봅니다.
Upon hearing of the possible meeting between Kim and Trump, reporters wait for a press conference. Could this remarkable meeting take place? All eyes are now on the US president.
We've been in touch with North Korea. We'll be meeting with them sometime in May or early June. And I think there'll be great respect paid by both parties, and hopefully we'll be able to make a deal on the denuking of North Korea. It's going to be a very important meeting. The denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, of North Korea to denuke. But we'll see how it goes.
I think the North Koreans are coming to speak with us now primarily because they have developed an intercontinental ballistic missile with a nuclear weapon on top that can strike the United States. Hawks want to read this as a victory for Trump's policy of pressure on North Korea. Liberals want to read this as a triumph for Moon's policy of engagement and openness to North Korea. I think both of those interpretations are inaccurate because they assume that we on the outside have a lot of influence on North Korean decision making.
이걸 왜 핵 문제를 북한과 미국이 둘이 얘기해서 해야 된다고 자꾸 얘기하느냐. 북한이 명확하게 얘기를 했죠. 우리가 핵을 개발하는 것은 미국의 대북 적대시 정책, 그 다음에 체제 보장 문제가 미국으로부터 걸려있기 때문에 하는 거다. 그러니까 미국 때문에 그렇다니까 그러면 북한과 미국이 얘기를 하라고 하는 거죠.
Donald Trump is willing to risk a major war and may be willing to sacrifice a significant part of the city of Seoul and maybe even alliance with South Korea in order to get rid of the North Korean nuclear weapons. Kim Jong-un decided not to take chances. He decided to push the brake because he saw that his program was way too likely to provoke a massive confrontation he is not going to win.
On June 25th, 1950, the Korean War broke out. It raged for 3 bloody years. On July 27th, 1953, an armistice was signed in Panmunjom. But South Korea was not a signatory to the truce, and no peace treaty has ever been signed. The signatories were the commanders of the UN, Chinese, and North Korean forces. It's all that technically prevents North Korea and the US, along with its ally South Korea, from resuming the war. At midnight on July 27th, 1953, the guns fell silent across a devastated Korea. The reason the killing stopped was due to the Korean War armistice. Now, of course, an armistice is not the same as a peace treaty, and that's why the Koreas still remain, to this day, technically at least, at war. But that may be about to change. There is now widespread talk of replacing the armistice with a peace treaty, ending a conflict that started in 1950. Following the Inter-Korean summit, experts were kept busy predicting what might lie ahead at the first ever North Korea-US summit. Given that the two sides are so far apart on the core issues, a question is whether the two can find common ground to form the basis for a successful summit.
이미 북한과 미국 간에는 지난 3월 31일부터 4월 1일까지 폼페이오 국무장관의 방북을 통해서 CVID의 방법론에 대해서 논의가 되고 있습니다.
여기에서 이제 가장 핵심은 이 비핵화를 어떻게 해결하느냐. 저는 그것이 이제 앞으로 가장 큰 이슈가 될 것 같습니다.
Security guarantee beyond the treaty that they would ask.
Looking into lowering the troop presence.
Tangible benefits.
북한의 완전한 비핵화에는 2년 이상이 소요될 수 있을 것입니다. 그런데 비핵화에서 핵심은 북한이 과거에 만들어 놓은 핵무기와 ICBM의 폐기, 즉 해외 이전이라고 할 수 있습니다. 그것은 1년 내에도 가능하다고 많은 전문가들이 보고 있습니다.
북한이 진정성을 가지고 비핵화를 받아들이겠다는 의지를 가졌을 때 가능하다 이렇게 말씀드릴 수 있습니다.
are you pessimistic or optimistic about the process we're currently engaged in?
I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe these great hopes and dreams are fulfilled when they're fulfilled, but I'm not accepting them now at face value.
My question, my big worry is rather what's happened after the summit. After the summit, when we get into the nitty-gritty of the negotiation about this peace treaty, about denuclearization, about verification, the risk is in the coming months, year, and this brings us back to history with North Korea. We've seen that before. At the ultimate moment, when we're getting a decisive moment, something breaks down. So I think we have to look beyond the summit.
The steps for North Korea's denuclearization had begun during Bill Clinton's presidency. In 1994, the Geneva Agreed Framework was reached. The agreement was signed on the basis of the US opening diplomatic ties with North Korea. In exchange for oil and a light water nuclear reactor, North Korea agreed to abandon its nuclear development. But this agreement broke down in 2003, and North Korea resumed and accelerated its nuclear arms programs. The international community responded. The UN Security Council started sanctioning North Korea in 2006. Today, North Korea is the most heavily sanctioned country on Earth.
The draft resolution has been adopted unanimously as Resolution 2270.
Resolution we have just adopted is so much tougher than any prior North Korea resolution, and why it goes further than any sanctions regime in 2 decades.
We should bear in mind that the toughest sanctions were all installed during the last year. Actually, the last year alone, the United Nations adopted 3 sanctions resolutions. Even the trade volume between China and North Korea for the month of January this year was only 1/5 of the same period last year. That says that the sanctions are taking tolls on North Korea.
There are almost 20 resolutions by UN Security Council. Initially, it really looked at only the dimension of a nuclear development or missile development. But the resolution in late 2016 discouraged our member state not to collaborate with the DPRK on scientific and technical cooperation.
We haven't carried out any technical assistance program for DPRK from mid-2015.
But even as sanctions against North Korea were strengthened, the regime continued to work on its nuclear arms and its ICBMs, or intercontinental ballistic missiles. Both programs were deterrents, increasingly aimed at the United States.
This designation will impose further sanctions and penalties on North Korea and related persons, and supports our maximum pressure campaign to isolate the murderous regime.
Both Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump have big credibility issues, right? The two sides, there's very little strategic trust between the two. You know, we had a nuclear deal with the Libyans, with Muammar Gaddafi. He gave up his nuclear program in exchange for a guarantee against U.S. action against him, and we cheated on that deal. We supported the Arab Spring revolutionaries that deposed him and eventually killed him. And then here's another nuclear deal with a rogue state, this time Iran, and we're walking out on that one as well. So if you're the North Koreans and you look back at the Americans cheating on the Libyan deal and the Iran deal twice in 10 years, why would you believe anything the Americans say?
North Korea's Kim made his first visit to China in 2018. Relations between the two countries have been estranged since 2011, when Kim first assumed power. China had traditionally been North Korea's closest ally, a relationship dating back to the Korean War. And in the years since, Beijing has often offered Pyongyang an economic lifeline. But more recently, Beijing too has joined international sanctions against Pyongyang. And Kim would meet Chinese President Xi Jinping for a second time after the Kim-Trump summit was announced. What did the two allies discuss behind closed doors?
북미 정상회담에 가서 자신들이 원하는 그림대로 그림이 안 그려졌을 경우에 트럼프 대통령이 다시 맥시멈 프레셔를 더 강화해야겠다라고 나올 경우에 차이나 패싱을 우려하고 있는 중국을 다시 끌어들임으로써 보호막을 좀 하나 더 가져보자.
About 90% of North Korea's external trade goes through China. So China has a big leverage, but still China is very frustrated about how little they can exert their influence in terms of North Korea's nuclear missile program.
If Americans are, well, excessively non-cooperative, China can always open the gates, start overlooking the sanctions implementation, so start looking for loopholes. As a kind of more extreme measures, if Americans threaten military operation, China might even remind everybody about the still technically existent mutual defense treaty.
Soon after Kim Jong-un's meeting with Xi Jinping, former CI director and US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo turned up in Pyongyang. Pompeo is widely seen as one of the more dovish of Trump's advisors. What message did Pompeo convey to Kim from Trump? Pompeo's visit was just one of a range of regional and global diplomatic developments taking place as the preparation for the Kim-Trump summit accelerated. Three American detainees were released by North Korea into Pompeo's care as a gesture of goodwill and good faith.
I really think he wants to do something and bring that country into the real world. I think that we're going to have a success. I think this will be a very big success. He really has been very open and I think very honorable.
Just yesterday, I returned from Pyongyang, where I had productive discussions with Chairman Kim Jong-un in preparation for President Trump's summit with him. We had good conversations, substantive conversations, conversations that involve deep, complex problems, challenges, the strategic decision that Chairman Kim has before him about how it is he wishes to proceed and if he is prepared in exchange for the assurances that we're ready to provide to him, if he is prepared to fully denuclearize.
However, the broader question is whether North Korea really will denuclearize in exchange for security guarantees.
He was in the military, and I said, well, what was going on when you were, when the regime was collapsing, right? And I asked him about the commissar system, the political officer. Well, the most important part of any weapons program, a nuclear program, is the human resources. So as far as being irreversible, as long as you have the scientists and the engineers, it could always be reconstituted. So I don't know if you could really say irreversible. Complete and verifiable means there has to be some kind of verification program, an inspections regime. Can any verification regime be 100% certain? Probably not.
Let the IAEA as an impartial and qualified international agency to be the final referee and to final the agency to monitor and inspect the nuclear activity of the countries.
Everybody knows that you cannot control the government who is in possession of a nuclear weapon here. It's unpredictable. Which countries are in possession of nuclear weapon? we know the European countries like France, Great Britain, North Korea, we don't know how many they have. But if you have India, another country, Pakistan, Russia, and the United States. Russia and the United States can kill the world hundreds of thousands of times.
The National Security Advisor John Bolton states that he would like to see Libya stay on denuclearization of North Korea, essentially a regime that surrenders the nuclear infrastructure just like that for free. Looking back, the only reasonable framework we can have to denuclearize North Korea is going to be a staged one. A stage one in which North Korea will give up some parts of its nuclear weapons in exchange for some sort of concessions from the outside, whether that's political, security, or economic.
So this comes back to the question. They may give up some parts, some fissile materials perhaps, but complete denuclearization, yes or no?
That's going to be impossible.
As promised by Kim, foreign journalists were invited to witness the destruction of elements of North Korea's underground nuclear test site at Punggye-ri. However, some cynics recalled the 2008 destruction of a cooling tower at North Korea's nuclear facility at Yongbyon, raising questions as to how important the step at Punggye-ri really was.
3, 2, 1. Today's explosion proved very successful, and as you can see, the northern tunnel of the nuclear test ground was completely destructed, and all the entrances of the tunnel were completely blocked.
As far as the Punggye-ri nuclear test site, I have mixed feelings about it. Of course, it's a positive development. But on the other hand, North Korea has conducted 6 nuclear tests. They probably don't need to conduct any more nuclear tests. And if they are really sincere about not conducting any nuclear tests in the future, they can sign the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which is open for signature.
This will only end like the Libyan model ended if Kim Jong-un doesn't make a deal.
Some people saw that as a threat.
Well, I think it's more of a fact.
North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Son-hee shot back, calling US Vice President Mike Pence a dummy for comparing Libya to North Korea. She also indicated that North Korea might pull out of the summit.
I've decided to terminate the planned summit in Singapore on June 12th. While many things can happen and a great opportunity lies ahead potentially, I believe that this is a tremendous setback for North Korea and indeed a setback for the world.
With only 20 days to go, Trump cancelled the summit with North Korea. What was his intent? There was shocked surprise in South Korea as all the hopes of previous months appeared to evaporate overnight. Trump's announcement of this cancellation made headlines worldwide.
김정은은 자기 자금 사정 때문에 미국이 이제 틀어먹는 그런 것들을 거기서 좀 벗어나고 싶어서 미국과 만나서 대화를 할 가능성이 충분히 있고, 트럼프도 자기 정치 인생에서 하나의 업적을 남기면 또 재선에도 좋고 하니까 서로 윈윈하는 상태에서 만날 가능성이 충분히 있다고 생각합니다.
제 생각에는 만날 것 같아요. 왜냐하면 그 이유는 서로에게 굉장히 중요한 시기이고 목적이 있다라고 저는 생각을 하거든요. 이 상황에 갑자기 안 만나고 그러면 더 악화가 되기 때문에 서로에게 필요하기 때문에 만날 거라고 생각합니다.
지금은 자기네가 경제적으로도 많이 힘들고 꼭 사회적으로 그렇게 해야지 된다는 생각을 좀 갖고 있는 것 같아서, 그래서 비핵화하면서 CVID 그 체제도 할 것 같은 느낌이 드네요.
We're here in central Seoul, and just behind me is the Embassy of the United States. And it's Washington which is taking the strongest line towards Pyongyang. It's demanding CVID, complete, verifiable, irreversible disarmament. But how does this hard line sync with Seoul's much gentler engagement policy with Pyongyang? Moreover, how can the extraordinary degree of animosity and distrust between, on the one hand, Pyongyang, on the other, Washington, be overcome? Could Seoul be forced into being an intermediary? 2 days after the American summit cancellation was announced, Kim and Moon held an unannounced second meeting at Panmunjom. Building on the good relations from April, the two made very clear that both Koreas wanted the American summit to get back on track.
우리 두 정상은 6월 10일 북미 정상회담이 성공적으로 이루어져야 하며 한반도의 비핵화와 항구적인 평화 체제를 위한 우리의 여정은 결코 중단될 수 없다는 점을 확인하고 이를 위해 긴밀히 상호 협력하기로 하였습니다.
Moon shared the results of his second meeting with Kim in a telephone call with President Trump. He reiterated that Kim was prepared to negotiate in good faith.
A letter is going to be delivered to me from Kim Jong-un, so I look forward to seeing what's in the letter, but it's very important to them, so they'll be probably coming down to Washington, D.C. on Friday for the delivery of a letter. I look forward to that.
Vice chairman of the Central Committee of North Korea's Workers' Party, Kim Yong-chol, visited the US to meet with US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in order to make sure the summit went ahead. Kim is known as a key player in the inner circle of Kim Jong-un. Kim Yong-chol presented President Trump with a special letter from Kim Jong-un.
I didn't cancel the meeting. I canceled it in response to a very tough statement. And I think we're over that, totally over that. And now we're going to deal, and we're going to really start a process. We're meeting with the chairman on June 12th. I don't even want to use the term maximum pressure anymore, because I don't want to use that term. Because we're getting along, you see the relationship, we're getting along. So it's not a question of maximum pressure. It's staying essentially the way it is. At some point, hopefully, a deal for the good of millions of people, a deal will be worked out.
With the summit apparently back on track, South Korean companies, which had previously operated in the Kaesong industrial complex, started making preparations to return.
원래 그 개성공단에서 했던 그런 이제 사업자들이 지금 문이 열리기만을 기다리고 있기 때문에 대북 제재가 해제되면은 기업인 고유의 경영 활동을 다시 이제 개성공단에 들어가서 북쪽 근로자들하고 할 겁니다.
같은 민족이 그 4천 년 동안에 반만 년 동안에 하나의 민족으로 하나의 평화롭게 살았는데 정치적 이유로 갈려져 있었는 거야. 그 갈려준 이유를 인위적으로 갈려진 거를 자연스럽게 경제적인 문화적으로 교류가 이루어져서 하나로 되는 과정의 최초의 이 시작이 개성공단이에요.
북미 정상회담에서는 핵을 잘 빨리 해결해서 개성공단에 빨리 들어갔으면 좋겠습니다.
North Korea today is the most heavily sanctioned nation on earth. But if peace moves do proceed, some of those sanctions may be lifted. And if they are, one project which could resume would be the Inter-Korean Industrial Complex near the North Korean city of Kaesong. Now, Kaesong was shuttered amid inter-Korean tensions in 2016. But of the 120 plus South Korean companies which used to operate in Kaesong, most would like to return. We've come here to Gyeonggi-do in the rolling hills just outside Seoul to meet one of those companies. The South Korean companies in Kaesong lost their production bases virtually overnight. But now as diplomatic developments proceed, there are hopes that very soon they may be able to return.
통일부에서 갑자기 연락을 받았어요. 사전에 연락도 없이 그날 갑자기 개성공단 전면 중단이 됐으니 모두 이제 들어갈 수가 없다. 그러는 상황에서 빈몸만 이제 나오게 된 거죠. 개성공단 다시 들어가게 되면은 저렴한 인건비를 이제 저희가 장점으로 무기로 해가지고 좋은 제품을 생산해서 이제 현재 바이어들이 우즈벡이나 멕시코 이런 쪽에 많이 나가 있는 상황이에요. 베트남 쪽으로. 그런 쪽으로 이제 저희 제품이 많이 수출이 되지 않을까 하는 그런 기대도 가지고 있습니다.
It was the first industrial complex built in North Korea as a model for inter-Korean economic cooperation, combining the capital and technology of South Korea with North Korea's labor force. The Kaesong Industrial Complex boasted high productivity and profitability. It was a symbol of inter-Korean cooperation and could provide a benchmark for many similar projects across North Korea.
If North Korea changes its orientation, be less belligerent and more cooperative, abandon their WMD programs, come into compliance with their non-proliferation commitments that they've already made, come into compliance with UN Security Council resolutions, economic assistance, and also economic cooperation in the form of trade, investment would be forthcoming.
If this economic sanction is lifted, we would have a chance to work with the DPRK in the field of trade and maybe energy and environment. Also, since 2014, it has designated more than 20 special development zones. So they have expressed interest in learning international rules and procedures on promoting investment and also trade.
This time around, we can do our best to make sure that North Koreans really give up their nuclear program, and we will be able to have durable peace on the Korean Peninsula, which will enable us to, we can go back to our cooperation, cooperative project with North Korea when the sanctions are lifted.
If the North Korea-US summit is successful, and if sanctions on North Korea are lifted, this empty station could come back to life once more. And it's not just rail tracks. There could also be roads and pipelines running from Korea into the heart of Eurasia. So here we are on the platform. There are plans underway to reconnect the rail lines between the two Koreas. And this ushers in some rather interesting possibilities. For example, you could take a train in Seoul, pass through the inter-Korean industrial complex at Kaesong, which was shuttered amid military tensions in 2016, through the North Korean capital of Pyongyang, cross the border into the Russian Far East, then speed your way across the Eurasian landmass all the way to Western Europe. Just the possibilities of reconnecting a rail link are pretty exciting. Prior to the 1945 division of Korea, trains ran unimpeded. There are now huge expectations that not just people and freight, but also the concepts of peace and unity could run along these same tracks. This is not the joint security area in Panmunjom. This is the set of the movie JSA. Tourists are flocking to this place to recreate the meeting of the two leaders at the Inter-Korean Summit. Since the summit, it's been buzzing with tourists, reflecting the electric excitement that's running through South Korea at the possibilities that lie ahead.
너무 쉽게 풀리는 일은 없잖아요. 뭐 사업을 하든 뭐라든. 근데 잠깐 중간에 시행착오나 또는 넘어야 되는 산이 잠깐 있을 거라고 생각했어요. 너무 쉽게 풀려가지고 그렇게 지금까지 몇십 년 된 일을 갖다가 한 번에 그냥 일사천리로 잘 될 일은 없다고 생각했어요. 근데 그렇지만 결국에는 잘 될 거다.
북한이 더 적극적으로 가가지고 조금 이번에 좀 미국과 북한의 이제 정상회담이 좀 저희 우리나라가 원하는 대로 좀 통일적으로 좀 잘 이끌 것 같아요.
트럼프와 김정은이가 잘 화합이 될 수 있도록 성공을 빌겠습니다. 네.
이것이 급반전이 돼서 정말 진정성 있게 북한이 변화되는 모습에 정말 요즘은 살만 나고 희망이 있고 우리 애들과 자녀들과 자손들에게 이 땅을 물려줄 수 있다. 뭐 그런 생각이 듭니다.
I would imagine that you'll probably see more inter-Korean projects, more economic cooperation, maybe some rail. Maybe you get some kind of demobilization along the MDL, the military demarcation line. So let's try opening North Korea. Let's try that, and we can have smaller deals first, building our way up towards this summit.
I do hope that it is the starting point for some serious negotiation about disarmament and de-escalation, negotiating peace for one of the crucial areas of this world, and work it out step by step. I think that's the only way to go.
If the meeting transpires well and it's a good meeting, there's a personal relationship is established, then that will create the environment for executing the roadmaps to achieve a robust peace regime.
North Korea is almost within touching distance. The gap with South Korea has never narrowed. Surely this chasm must now be bridged. The personal, the social, the cultural, the economic, the political potentialities of peace and reconciliation on the Korean Peninsula are immense. Surely it is time for the Koreans and the world to grasp these possibilities. We're here in Imjingak, an observation point and peace park overlooking the Imjin River, which you can see behind me. Now, the Imjin River starts in North Korea and it winds down through South Korea before emptying its mingled North and South Korean waters into the Yellow Sea, or what Koreans call the West Sea. In short, Imjingak is a place that is emblematic of the tragedy of division. And yet, there is now a glimmer of hope that the peace and reconciliation process that is just getting underway may, just may, begin reforging the connections between this divided people on this divided land. Expectations are high across Korea for the balm of peace to replace the tensions of an unfinished war. Chairman Kim and President Trump will be carrying the expectations of the world on their shoulders as they summit together in Singapore. And it's a summit which follows decades of tragedy and months of drama. Is a resolution to the Korean crisis at hand at last? We can only hope.